It's one of the most impactful medical interventions we've seen since birth control.
Do you think that we should be looking at GLP-1's as hormone therapy?
You might solve one problem, but you may cause yourself another problem.
I'm going to be real open about this, and I'm happy to take it for the rest of my life because society is much nicer to me when I'm thin.
That's how powerful and impactful they are. They do kill your appetite. They do represent this culture-shifting intervention for weight loss. The abuse potential is there for people who are like, oh, I want to lose 10 pounds for my wedding, or I'm going to go to Vegas, or whatever. Don't think it's a good idea.
Why? My guest today is renowned fitness expert Sal Di Stefano. He is one of the hosts of the very wildly popular show Mind Pump, which you can find on YouTube and any podcast app. He's someone who's been in the fitness industry for more than 25 years. He's trained thousands of people, now hundreds of thousands of people virtually. He's helped people break through those weight loss plateaus and help make sense of the nuances when it comes to weight loss and building a stronger body. He tells it like it is, and today he's here to do just that. Sal, welcome back to the show. People loved having you on the last episode.
Thank you.
Let's speak to that woman. She's been exercising. She's been lifting weights. She's got her diet dialed in for the most part. And she wants to know why she can't lose that last 5 or 10 pounds. And she's very seriously considering a GLP-1.
Yeah.
And I know you and the guys on your show have done a bunch of experimenting with this, not just with the three of you, but with a community. And you've created a program around that. So I want to know everything about your thoughts on GLP-1s. What does it look like for the long term? What woman do you think is right for this? If she's goes on this and she's wanting to build muscle, what does she need to be aware of? What are your thoughts on microdosing it? All the things.
Yeah, so GLP-1s are very interesting. First off, if you have, 10 pounds to lose, there are far better if you're looking at medical interventions, as I think if you only have 10 pounds to lose, then you don't need a medical intervention. But there are far better medical interventions for the person who loses 10 pounds. Like you could go on a growth hormone releasing peptide. It would be better for you than a GLP-1. You could optimize your hormones. You could take testosterone if it's low, and that'll do it, better for your thyroid if that's low. Mm-hmm. So a GLP-1 in that case, I think, all it's going to do is blunt your appetite, have you eat less. But there are peptides that are more effective for that from a medical intervention standpoint. But let's talk about GLP-1s here for a second.
Yeah.
When they first started getting popular, my initial reaction was, another medical intervention or pharmaceutical for weight loss. I know what that's like. It's probably terrible side effects.
Like fen.
Yeah, like every medical intervention, that we've had before was just terrible side effects. They were stimulant based. They caused all kinds of. They weren't super effective. But GLP-1 is very different. I started looking at the data, and I said, "Oh my gosh, this is very interesting." The studies on GLP-1s were showing consistent 15 to 20% body weight loss in their trials. And they were, massive trials. And I said, and this is not a stimulant. You're not giving somebody a stimulant. So I said, okay, guys, we need to take this seriously and look at this and understand this, because if what I'm reading is correct, this is going to be culture shifting. And now it's quite clear that it is. I think, I'll bet money on this. It's one of the most impactful medical interventions that we've seen since birth control. It's going to be one of those culture shifting moments where we look back and we go pre-GLP-1, post-GLP-1. That's how powerful and impactful they are.
It's interesting you mentioned birth control, a hormone.
Yeah.
Do you think that we should be looking at GLP-1s as hormone therapy or medical intervention?
They are. It is a hormone. It is activating the receptors that are affected by this hormone, but it is different. It is a bit different. I don't know if there's a GLP-1, and I know there's some speculation around this, but are there GLP-1 deficiencies? Like there may be with hormone therapies, right? Trying to fill a deficiency.
Right.
I don't know. I've seen data that's mixed on this, so
interesting.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's even a thing, right? Nonetheless, they do represent this culture-shifting intervention for weight loss. Now, that doesn't mean, I'm not saying that they're all good and that this is going to save us. What I am saying is they're very powerful. So my thoughts on it are as such. I think the potential for abuse is huge. because they do kill your appetite. If you use a big dose or recommended dose, it will kill your appetite, so you'll eat less. The abuse potential is there for people who are like, oh, I want to lose 10 pounds for my wedding, or I'm going to go to Vegas or whatever. That exists for sure. Don't think it's a good idea.
Why?
I think what you're doing is, well, there's two reasons why. One is you're not, and look, fine, to each their own. If you want to use a peptide or a drug in this way, on and off whenever you need it, what you're not doing is working on the behaviors that surround your relationship to food, your relationship to your body. If anything, it's going to feed some of this negative, some of the negative relationships we have, the body image issue stuff, and like, do these things ever solve those issues, or they make them worse, right? Unless you go about them the right way, they tend to make them worse.
Yeah.
So that's I trained people for 20 years, like one-on-one. So when I see that, I go, oh, it's not going to give you what you think you're going to get from it. And you're going to end up going down this kind of path of not being happy with what you're going to get from it.
But what about that woman who's like, I'm okay with taking it for the rest of my life. You know, if I have success and I'm able to be in a smaller body. I mean, there's a bunch of reality TV stars, like all the housewives. Yeah. A couple of them have been really open about it. And they're like, hey, bottom line is, I'm going to be real open about this. And I'm happy to take it for the rest of my life because society is much nicer to me when I'm thin.
Yeah. That's a complicated question. First off, I think everybody should have the right to do that kind of thing if they want. But I will say this, it doesn't solve all your problems, because just eating less, you will lose weight, but you could be, and oftentimes will cause another issue, which is muscle loss. So, you know, we talk about the obesity epidemic, and we understand that as being this big contributor to poor chronic health. But what we don't talk about is this other issue that is underneath, that is also contributing to poor health. That is that we're under muscled. Okay, so for example, if you look at the data on heart disease, cancer, diabetes, a majority of people with those are obese, but there's a sizable minority, like representing millions of people that are never overweight, that suffer from those things. Now, what's happening? They're under muscled.
That's right.
Look at the data on low muscle and longevity. It's terrible. In fact, if you're aging, it's better to be a little overweight, than it is to be underweight from a longevity standpoint.
That's right.
So what happens when you just eat less? Well, here's what happens. Your body loses some fat, but it also loses muscle. It pares muscle down because it's matching or trying to match the new caloric intake. So if my body, let's say, is burning 2,000 calories a day, and I take a GLP-1, and now I'm only eating 1,200 calories a day, I'm going to lose weight until my body learns how to only burn 1,200 calories. And it will do that. Otherwise I'll die, right? And the way it does is it pares muscle down. So when you look at the data on GLP-1s, when they're not combined with high protein intake and strength training, 40% of the weight comes from muscle. So you're going to cause, you might solve one problem, but you may cause yourself another problem.
What percentage of muscle loss happens if I'm just doing the same calorie deficit, but I'm doing it through discipline? Do we have any statistics there? Do you know?
Right around just as much. Anytime you.
So it's not the GLP that's like diminishing muscle.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you asked that. No. GLP-1s don't cause muscle loss. The lower calorie, not doing the strength training, not eating high protein combination causes muscle loss. Just like if you cut your calories and didn't strength train and didn't eat high protein. Like if you took the average person who want to lose 30 pounds and they just cut their calories and that's all they did, they would also see a nice reduction in muscle along with weight. So that's just how the body adapts to lower calories. Now, the way you offset that is you eat a high protein diet. So make sure you hit, and the target is about 1 gram per pound of target body weight. So let's say your target body weight is 120 pounds. Eat 120 grams of protein a day, and then strength train. And then that'll really do a lot for maintaining muscle and or build muscle through this process.
So if we're doing that the right way, then a GLP-1, if taken and if you're following a protocol like you've just described, you shouldn't experience muscle loss.
No, you shouldn't. But it's easier said than done. The GLP-1s can be really strong. The way that they're prescribed now are these kind of standard doses.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we've worked with people, because we had a group of people that we worked with.
What was the split male to female?
It was majority female.
Okay.
Yeah, majority
Interesting.
female.
Okay.
It was like 70% female.
And what'd you find?
For some people, it destroys their appetite. They can't hit protein. They can't. They cannot hit the protein targets. It was such a struggle for a lot of them because a lot of the ways that they're prescribed is like, here's your dose.
Oh.
Now, you can work with some specialists that will work with compound pharmacies and will lower the dose if your appetite is too hammered. Because if you can't hit that protein target, you're not in a good place. Yeah, you'll see the weight on the scale go down, but you're losing muscle. And you're setting yourself up for a really shitty place afterwards because metabolism will adapt. Look, I tell you what, there were people in this group who had 80 pounds to lose, who were on a GLP-1, lost 50 pounds of it, were stuck with the last 30 pounds, but they were eating like 1,200 calories a day. And they're like, it's been 8 months. I can't lose any more weight. What do I do?
Oh, wow.
Where are you going to go? You're going to go down to 800 calories? You can't. You can't go down that low.
Wow.
So what do we do? You up your GLP-1 dose and eat nothing? Now you're going to hurt yourself. What do we do? You're stuck because your metabolism down.
What do they do?
Oh, we had to reverse diet them. So I talked to these people and said, okay, see if you can change your doses of your GLP-1 so you can eat more. Let's reverse diet you. Let's focus on strength training, build some muscle, and get your metabolism up again. And within a few months, we'll revisit the cut, which we did. And a lot of them had tremendous success. There was one woman who plateaued for 6 months, and she did exactly that. And about 45 days into the reverse diet, her body started burning body fat again while she was eating more calories.
Now they're self-reporting what they're actually consuming, right? So in those instances, do you think that they actually are eating as few calories as they're reporting?
In this group, they were because they were tracking.
Okay.
We had them track diligently because self-reporting based off of like, well, it's always off.
Yeah.
It's always super off.
It's the thing that has just boggled my mind around this conversation is for the longest time we've been saying it's not about calories. But it sounds like it is about calories.
Yeah. Well, it's not about calories in the sense that
weight loss if we're just talking straight weight loss,
is.
If we take muscle out of the category, when it comes to weight loss,
you have to take in less calories than you burn. That's just the law of thermodynamics. It's a law of physics. But what people forget is the calorie burn side of the equation. They forget that they can affect their metabolism, right? So if you're burning 2,000 calories and you're eating 2,000 calories, there's two ways I can create a deficit. Either eat less calories or teach my body to burn more calories.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'll tell you the approach with the GLP-1 that is a success formula. First off, I think the right avatar of a person using a GLP-1 is somebody who has really struggled with weight, where it's been really, really hard. And I have a lot of sympathy for these people. I worked with people like this for, like I said, 2 decades, okay? Mm-hmm. First off, just to give them some credence, okay? Because I know people in my space are terrible with people who struggle with weight because they look at them like, first of all, they think everybody's like them, a fitness fanatic and orthorexic. And it's like, no. First off, we live in a world that is not designed and organized in a way to make you fit and healthy.
That's
it's
right.
actually the opposite.
That's right.
You're sedentary naturally. Everything's designed to make us sedentary. And then food is engineered. It's literally billions of dollars have gone into engineering food to make it so palatable that it causes you to overeat. It has drug-like effects on cravings and on your body. And we know this. If we use the same criteria that they used to judge tobacco's addictive properties, we could plug ultra-processed foods in that, and it'll fit perfectly. So we're in this world, and through years of eating this way and living this way, your brain starts to shape and mold itself this way. So it is not easy. It is extremely, extremely, extremely difficult. So it's almost like trying to break an addiction, right? So you're here, you've got a lot of weight to lose. This has been a struggle for much of your life. You get on a GLP-1. Okay, now what GLP-1s do is they get rid of that strong craving signal. Okay. So it gets rid of the strong craving signal. Okay, so now what do I do with that? Cravings are gone. So I'm not a slave to this constant craving. Okay, now I'm gonna eat a high protein diet. I'm gonna start strength training, and I'm gonna work through that. So that's number one. Number two, I am going to build and develop behaviors that are gonna serve me when I get off this GLP-1. Okay. Now, why this is a good time to do this is the following: when you are engaging in a behavior, anytime you engage in behavior, you strengthen the neural network, right? So you have these neural connections with behaviors that are like this.
Right.
When I stop engaging that behavior, those neural networks start to weaken and start to break apart, separate. So any kind of habit that you do on a regular basis is a strong habit. You stop doing the habit, the longer you move away from the habit, the easier it is to not do the habit, right? So you quit smoking, the first few weeks is like, I want to kill someone.
Right.
5 years later, like, yeah, I could have a cigarette, but it's not pulling at me like it did those few weeks after. So those neural networks are starting to break apart because you're not engaging in the behavior that I had before where I was reaching for food every time I was stressed, every time I was anxious, every time I came home from work, those cravings. So that's breaking. But now I have an opportunity to develop other behaviors. So I'm still going to feel stressed. I'm still going to feel anxious. I'm still going to feel depressed. Those things will still happen. What do I reach for? I don't have that strong craving for food. What am I going to do? What kind of behaviors can I develop and build around those things so that when I go off the GLP-1, hunger goes back up, I'm not reaching for the food anymore. And by the way, when you get off the GLP-1 6 months later, a year later, those cravings kick back up, they're not like they were before because you've broken those chains essentially. Now you can build them back up if you start re-engaging, but the ideal situation is to use that as training wheels to develop these new behaviors in this new life. So when I come off this GLP-1, which speaking to experts, and I've talked to many doctors and experts who've worked with these things for a long time, they use a kind of slow scale down approach.
Okay.
And the clients that have lots of success coming off of them and keeping the weight off and doing great are doing the things that I talk about. And they take them down slowly and they feel good. And they're like, it doesn't have the pull on me like it used to. And I've got this new life and I feel great.
It has been a very long time since I've been this excited to tell you about something. Forever, I've been getting comments from my community like, okay, Chalene, how do I find a clinician to help me with my hormones? Like, I can't get anyone to listen to me. And it's been very frustrating because until recently, there hasn't been a solution. Enter MIDI. MIDI is our show sponsor today. MIDI Health, founded by women. This is a telehealth company. The clinicians are all specialized in perimenopause and menopause treatment. They're going to listen to you. They actually know what they're talking about. And it's super affordable and they accept insurance. That means no matter where you are, even if you live in a very rural area, you can work with MIDI's clinicians. They're actually going to listen to you. They're actually trained in perimenopause and menopause on women's hormones and health. I've used MIDI myself. I recently got estrogen cream for under my eyes, and I can't wait to look like a newborn baby. My staff is using MIDI, and several of my best friends I've recommended to MIDI. Check them out. Go to Chalene.com/MIDI, MIDI. The link will be in our show description, but just in case, it's my name, Chalene.com/MIDI. That way they'll know that I sent you, and I'm so excited for you to try this. That client of yours, you've worked with people for 20 years, and I know you've had that client who's like, listen, I'm not eating anything.
Yeah.
I'm barely eating any food, and she's 50 pounds overweight.
Yeah.
She says she's not eating anything, and then she goes on a GLP-1, and the weight comes off. So is she unaware that she was eating? Like, what's going on there? Like, I have a really hard time, like, figuring out, like, what is the answer?
Yeah, so it could be one of two things. One, people miscalculate. So it could be I'm eating nothing. Well, when they actually track, it's actually a lot more than you think. It could also be you weren't eating much to begin with. Now you're eating just way less.
Okay.
So you were at 1,700 calories a day, which isn't much.
Yeah.
By the way, we're especially women, they're conditioned to believe that like 1,500 calories a day is like a good caloric intake. It's not. That's not great. I mean, you don't get very many nutrients with 1,500 calories a day, especially if you're active. So, and
of course, depending on your height and your size, right?
Of course.
Like, people always want to know what my calories are. I'm like, I'm not going to tell you because I am the shortest person you know. You know what I mean? And so I don't want you to look at my calories. Appreciate
that. So no, 100%. So she might have been eating not that much, and then now she's eating far less. But then, of course, the body will adapt, and she'll plateau, and then be screwed. So when I would get clients, what I would do is I would try and build a runway so that we could cut. So, and the runway looked like, let's get the metabolism to boost. Now we're going to cut from this large place, and we have some runway, and then where we end up is a sustainable place, right? 1,000 calories a day is not sustainable for most people. Right? 2,000 calories a day, 1,800 calories a day, sustainable for many people.
You mentioned the food is addictive, right? We know that food companies put ingredients and they just put a little dash of it in there, and we don't even realize how
No.
addictive it's become. So much of our food and alcohol is just that. It's designed to make us crave it more. I've heard from a lot of individuals, and I don't know if there's new studies on this, but the GLPs are really helping to curb addiction, and not just addiction to food, but to alcohol, online shopping.
That's the interesting thing. So GLP-1s are, I mean, we'll get into the weeds with them, but this has been like a real passion of mine because I'm fascinated. I was reading reports of that. So I started to call some of the experts in the field. We have the luxury of speaking to some of the world leading research, leaders in many spaces because of our podcast.
Yeah.
So I was talking to Dr. Seeds and Dr. Tina about what I'm hearing. And they're like, oh yeah, they think it has to do with the hedonistic experience we get from certain behaviors and experiences. So obviously that goes with food, but for some people, it also affects how they seek out other habits like alcohol or smoking or other things like that. So
does it have an impact on your dopamine receptors?
Great question, and I don't know.
Oh.
That's a great question. My area of curiosity with this is because they're trying to give this to kids. They're already saying, hey, we should give this to adolescents who are overweight.
Mm-hmm.
If it is indeed affecting how we perceive hedonistic feelings, could that potentially affect the way the brain molds and shapes itself? As an adult, less of a big deal. For kids, because the brain is very plastic, I'm like, I'm a little apprehensive. Like, I don't want to affect that because could it affect the way that they perceive pleasure in other areas as they get older, or changes the shape of the brain, or how it, I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's a very good question. They're also looking at its effect on autoimmune issues. And there's research on things like psoriasis.
Oh, wow.
Well,
and is that because the inflammatory markers and seeing this decrease? Dr. Tina Moore, someone I've had on the show. I know you've had her on the show a couple of times too. And she talks about the use of GLP-1s in a very micro dose where it doesn't impact appetite, but has a significant impact on inflammatory markers.
Yeah.
So that's something, like, I have to be honest, I'm so intrigued. I would love to try that, but I'm also afraid that if I did, then anything I'm teaching my audience, they love to say, oh, but you're on Ozempic.
No, I just be very open about it. So I microdose tirzepatide precisely to experience, I don't need my appetite suppressed. I don't want it suppressed.
Yeah.
But I microdosed it to see if I noticed any autoimmune issues, because I tend to have autoimmune gut issues.
Okay.
That'll flare up. So I tested it, and I'm talking like drops of it, like microdose, right? So I don't get any appetite suppressing effects, and I did notice some beneficial effects on my autoimmune type issues. I know Adam, my co-host, noticed on psoriasis as well. So, but the research is still out on that. So I'm not going to.
Would you continue to do it? Or did you discontinue?
I did.
Why?
I did. It's just because I wanted to experiment with it so I could.
But if you
communicate
didn't have any
it.
negative side effects and you only had positive side effects, you saw a decrease in inflammatory markers.
I don't know what I don't know what the potential negatives would be for long-term use necessarily.
I see.
But
did you experience weight loss?
No.
Okay.
No. It was too low. I didn't notice any changes in appetite, but I did notice gut health benefits.
Interesting,
right? So it's a very interesting place in space. I will say this though, it's going to increase. It already is increasing the interest in strength training, because people are noticing the loss of muscle.
Okay.
So people who normally wouldn't be interested in strength training are now asking questions. And you do, again, I think if you combine it with some behavioral modifications and do it right, and you're the right person for it, I think it'd be great. But I'd be lying if I didn't say though that we're already seeing lots of abuse. I mean, I'm already seeing the competitive space use it. Pre-contest, they'll take up GLP-1 so they can eat less for their show. You're seeing the I do it just because I'm gonna go to the beach, in a month type of deal.
And just to be clear, this is not something that is helping your body to process fat. It's literally about appetite. So you're consuming fewer calories.
Yeah, there's some insulin sensitizing effects that happen as well, which are interesting. Yeah, which are interesting. So, and Dr. Tina speaks a lot to that. So does Dr. Seeds. Here's the deal. There's a question we often get on the podcast, and it's something along the lines of like, if there was a pharmaceutical pill, if there was a magic drug that you could take that would make you fit and lean, how would you feel about that? Now, here's how I'd feel about that. And I'll ask you this question. Of all the benefits that you get from your whole life of exercise and diet and all that stuff, part of those benefits are how you look. How many benefits come through the journey?
Absolutely.
So in other words, I'll just use another example. We have data on lottery winners. So they get the money, millions of dollars. What ends up happening?
Gone. Majority of them go bankrupt. Yeah.
Now, you try communicating this to somebody who's struggling with their weight, they probably don't want to hear it.
Sure.
But many of the benefits you get through exercise and eating right have nothing to do with the fact that you look fit. They have everything to do with the journey and what you learn about yourself and the relationship you build with these things and the discipline, all that stuff. And even if they did have a magic pill, which doesn't exist, I think a lot of people realize that. They take the magic pill. Oh my God, I'm gonna be so happy now. And then they're not happy like they thought they would, because so much of it comes from going to the gym and making the choices and being empowered with what you're doing and feeling great. Like a lot of benefit comes from just that, not just the end result.
Anecdotally, I know quite a few people who are in our space, and they're well-known health influencers, very reputable, and they're microdosing.
Yeah.
And they're not sharing that publicly for the same reasons why I said I'm curious, but I won't do it, because I have to be honest. And if somebody asks me, I don't want them to have that like, see, I gotcha. You know what I mean? But I'm still very interested in it. If I wasn't in this space, I would definitely be taking it for the anti-inflammatory markers. But I also know a handful of people who've taken it for weight loss and have had incredible results, but no muscle.
Yeah.
And they've said, I don't feel like I need to go. Like, I was always going to the gym to lose weight, and now I'm like losing the weight and I don't have to go to the gym.
Yeah.
And I guess my question for you is, that person who's like, I don't have the energy, because that's what a lot of them said. Like, I just don't even have the energy to do it.
Yeah.
If they were to prioritize going to the gym, what is it they need to do?
So we created a program for people on GLP-1s, because one thing that we noticed was that when people initially go on a GLP-1, the calories get so low that they don't have energy to do traditional workouts. Like, they're eating like 900 calories a day less. They're losing weight, but they're like, yeah, right. Like, I'm not feeling like energized to go work out. Very minimal. That's what you do. You do very, very minimal. Like 2 exercises a day, use a suspension trainer. Just send this signal to your body that says we need muscle. You don't need to beat yourself up at all. So we created, like I said, a program for people on a GLP-1, and there's basically 2 programs in there. One of them is when your energy's feeling good, you're not in that initial stage, you can eat a little more. That one's more of an intense workout, but the initial workout is literally you're doing like 2 or 3 exercises on a suspension trainer. And in there we write, like, if you have terrible energy, just go through the movements.
And this is all strength training, no cardio?
No.
Because they're getting the cardio benefits from doing the strength training.
Yeah, don't worry about the cardio. I mean, you can walk, and that'll give you all the health benefits that you need. But just the strength training, you got to keep that muscle. Don't lose muscle. Like, muscle is a longevity organ. And if you lose a bunch of weight, but a lot of it's muscle, you're going to set yourself up for not great health. Like, in many cases, I think people are robbing Peter to pay Paul through this process. So, and we're going to see this. Like, I'll tell you this right now. We're going to see this. People who just go on them and don't do the strength training and do anything, they're going to run into other muscle-related problems. And insulin resistance, look, that can come from being obese. That also comes from having little muscle. Like, people with little muscle, their risk of diabetes is just as high. So,
what is your stance on walking? Like, obviously, I'm a big fan of walking, and I think it's really important, especially for women who are over 40. Just looking at the inflammation that happens from endurance cardio. Is there an age range where you're a fan of long endurance? Like, is there any age where you're like, oh, you know what, run a marathon? It's probably ideal.
No, I mean, if your goal is endurance, athletic endurance, then training for endurance is great. If your goal is health, longevity, body composition, the best form of activity, we'll just call it activity.
Sure.
But you can put it in the category of cardio, but really it's just activity is walking. Now, why do I like walking so much? Well, number one, everybody can still do it.
Yeah.
So people forget that exercise is a skill. And so one of the mistakes people make is they'll at 35 years old, they'll lace up their running shoes and go, I'm going to go run. And they stopped running when they were 15. So now they think they're going to go run and work out, and their biomechanics are off. And you look at the data on injuries with running, it's the highest injury producing form of exercise. Now, it's not because humans aren't supposed to run. We actually evolved to run, but it's because it's a skill, and nobody treats it as such. They go and they run till they're tired. And so then their knees hurt and their back hurts, and then they hurt their feet or whatever. And they try and get fancy shoes to compensate for all this. Walking, everybody could still do. Luckily, we're not in the world of WALL-E, where people are floating around on those machines or whatever. People can still walk without creating problems. So that's number one. Number two, it's not so intense that it requires lots of recovery like other forms of exercise. And it leaves room for strength training because if you're going to cause any stress on the body through exercise, leave it for the strength training to build the muscle. And then from a health perspective, it's easy to do any time of the day. You don't need to, switch into workout clothes. You just get up and walk. And if you walk after meals, the insulin sensitizing effects are significant, and it's an easy form of exercise. So, if you walked 10 minutes after breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that would be better than doing 45 minutes separately. So even though it's more walking, it's actually more beneficial to do it after breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But and then do your strength training. So if you walked every day after breakfast, lunch, and dinner, did 2 days a week of strength training, like I literally just gave you the perfect routine for most people. Like that would give most people like 85 to 90% of the results that they're looking for would get just from doing that right there.
Why is it then if allegedly we're burning a lot more calories if I'm doing like an Orange Theory workout or a boot camp or cycling or, insert name of endurance 1 hour workout. I want to get into a calorie deficit. Mm-hmm. You said there's a couple of ways I can do that. I can eat less or I can exercise more. Why should a woman who's listening to this, who's like, but I'm not burning as many calories. It's not as intense. So I'm not getting to the same deficit.
What I said was not exercise more, but burn more. And we think activity is the only way that we burn more calories. No. Your metabolism is very complex, and it adapts very quickly and effectively to calories burned through movement. Okay. And there's lots of data on this. My favorite study to quote, and I might have even brought this up on your show last time, but if I haven't, I'll bring it up now. There was a study, it's my favorite study to bring up. There was a study on modern hunter-gatherers, the Hadza tribe in northern Tanzania. So they live the way that humans lived thousands of years ago. They don't have electronics. They hunt and they gather. And how do they hunt? They throw a spirited animal, injure it, run after it for miles until it gets exhausted, drag it back to camp, cook it. They don't have TV. They don't have iPhones. Even when they rest, they sit in a squat. Like, for all intents and purposes, they move significantly more than the average Western person, Western couch potato. So what scientists did is they went and they studied them, and they, through sophisticated testing, tested their metabolisms. How many calories are they burning on a regular basis? And they ended up finding, to people's surprise, that these Hadza tribes people were burning right around the same calories that the average Western couch potato was burning. Now, I know you have a confused look on your face. Like, how's that possible? Well, consider evolution. If our bodies allowed us to burn 6,000 or 7,000 calories a day through activity, we wouldn't be here.
That's right. Yeah.
Because you're not going to find, if you live as like a hunter-gatherer, good luck trying to find 6,000 calories a day. Yeah. It's not going to happen, right? They don't have modern agriculture. You're not going to catch animals that easily. So the body adapts to that form of activity. So you go do Orange Theory, for the first month, your body's burning tons of calories, but it learns.
Yes.
It learns how to become very efficient, partially through muscle loss and partly through metabolic efficiency. So now, and by the way, this is why, if you lose weight with calorie burning workouts, this is why you lose weight at first, then you plateau so hard.
That's right.
You're like, oh my God, I'm working out 4 days a week. I'm doing these crazy classes. I'm eating 1,500 calories. I still have 20 pounds to lose. What the hell's going on? Your body is adapted. It's not going to burn any more calories. What are you going to do? Move more? That's going to work for another few weeks, and then you're going to plateau again. Again, this is why what we want to do is we want to teach our bodies to burn more calories on their own. We want to speed up our metabolism. You have a faster metabolism. Look, it's like money. You can make more money by working more hours, but eventually you run out of hours, or you can learn how to invest your money so it makes money for you. Teach your body to burn more calories so that you could sit there like we are, and my metabolism is humming along. And the way you do that is you build muscle. those calorie burning, quote unquote calorie burning workouts, they're not muscle building, they're endurance building. If you want endurance, is fine, but your body doesn't need muscle to burn more calories. It doesn't need a lot of muscle, for endurance. It needs muscle for strength.
Yeah.
But for endurance, you can get rid of muscle all day long. And then again, it learns to become efficient with those calories. And that's what happens.
For someone who's interested in maintaining muscle and doing the GLPs in such a way that they do improve their health markers, right? And maintaining that muscle, how can they find out more about your program?
You can go on mapsfitnessproducts.com. It's called MAPS GLP-1. And in there, we give you dietary strategies, lifestyle strategies, supplement recommendations, and of course, the workout. And there's, like I said, there's 2 stages of the workout.
Love that.
Workouts for when your energy is very low and workouts from when you're feeling a little better. By the way, a reverse diet, which I don't know how many times you've talked about this on your show, but a reverse diet is where you slowly increase your calories as you build muscle to boost your metabolism. If you're going to go on a GLP-1 and have a lot of weight to lose, you'll probably at some point going to have to reverse diet, because at some point you're going to get so low with your calories, you're not going to have anywhere else to go and you'll have more weight to lose. When you get to that place, start increasing your calories slowly, 100 calories a week typically, and strength train and get yourself stronger. And then when your metabolism gets up again, then you can start the cut, and then you'll get that extra fat off.
That's awesome. Sal, thank you so much. This has been an incredible conversation. I appreciate your honesty and sharing the candor of your experience yourself doing the GLP-1 microdosing and with your community. It's always a treat to have you on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.